You talk in the book a lot about empathy and trying to understand the other. And, as also as an antidote potentially to narcissism. I'm wondering, we're seeing a lot of division in America, and at the same time, we can't interact socially. So we miss the cues and the get-togethers and times where we maybe would hang out socially, even with people with different points of view. And now we watch our own news networks, we follow our own social people. We sometimes interact digitally, which means we lose the nuance, we use the empathy, we use the humanity of it. Do you see this extended lockdown period being difficult or hard for that empathy factor?
Very much so. But in moments like this, what really is important is leadership. Is somebody on the top sort of setting the tone for the entire country. And we've noticed that, at least here in the United States, we faced moments like this before. Probably the most extreme was during the Civil War. And when the person or the people on top are basically trying to spread a message of, we have to unify this country, we're all in this together, we're all Americans, at least for the United States here. And we're either going to, a house divided cannot stand, which were Lincoln's very famous words. It's either, so that kind of people from the top can set the tone. But when you have leadership actually trying to divide us, actually pushing all of our buttons, becomes increasingly difficult. And so I've noticed on social media, I'm not going to disguise the fact that I am not a Trump supporter. I do not like Donald Trump. I think he's the worst president we've ever had, and he's extremely dangerous. I'm not going to hide that. So people can take that and however they want. But I've noticed on social media that I try and discuss rationally on Facebook or wherever, certain elements of certain of his policies, particularly now since the coronavirus has exploded on us. And I don't get I'm open to other people. I'm trying to hear their point of view. I'm trying to hear them defend his response to a crisis that has killed over 120,000 Americans. The equivalent of over 50 9/11s, if you will, kind of thing, or 60 9/11s, an incredible number of private citizens being killed. I want to hear their defense. I'm open to hearing something rational. And all I get are these slogans and this very kind of defensive posture. And it sort of starts from the top. He's kind of created this tone. Of course, he's exploiting something that's already there. He's already exploiting the divisions that exist within our country, and he's making them worse. And he's using social media as a way to do this. But it doesn't mean that social media in itself is simply a means of dividing people. It could be used for other things. It could be used as a form of dialogue. It could be used as a way of rational discourse. I know I'm sounding like incredibly idealistic here, but I want to hear people defend his policies. I want to hear a rational argument. And all you get are these heated emotional responses. A lot of it, to me, stems from cognitive dissonance, which is something I talk about in the chapter on irrationality. And the idea here is you form an opinion about somebody. Let's say you support a certain politician like Donald Trump. And then evidence comes in that maybe contradicts your original decision. But you, instead of listening to that evidence, because if you listen to that and then you have to admit that you were wrong in your original choice. And people never like to admit that they were wrong. They would rather hold on to something that's irrational, to believe that their original choice was the right one, than to have to admit that their original choice was wrong, because it causes doubts about who you are, about yourself as a person and your own intelligence. So instead of rethinking your original position, you then latch on even more emotionally to what drove you in the first place. And I see a lot of that kind of behavior going on. And so one of the things I talk about in rationality, it's not that you're not born rational, you are born irrational. But to become irrational, to become rational, you have to be able at times to admit you were wrong, to admit that sometimes you made a mistake, that you made choices that didn't come from the right information. That is the first step towards becoming a rational human being. And I've done that through myself. I'm constantly admitting that predictions I made 8 or 10 years ago were wrong. People I voted for ended up not being the right people, and it was my fault. I recognize my own limitations, that I can make emotional, wrong-headed decisions. That is the first step towards being rational. And in this climate, it's extremely hard to find people who are willing to do that.